This is the story of how my GPS led me somewhere that shouldn't exist, and I promise you, this isn't clickbait. Every word of this is true, and I'm still trying to make sense of it. So let me set the scene for you. It was late October, around mid-afternoon on a Saturday. The weather was that perfect autumn temperature, cool but not cold, with clear skies and beautiful fall colors everywhere. I had just finished a big freelance project that had taken up most of my time for the past 2 months, and I finally had a free weekend. My cousin Emily, who I hadn't seen in almost a year, had been asking me to visit her in this small town where she'd recently moved for work. I'm talking about one of those places that barely shows up on maps. You know the type? Population, maybe 2,000 people, surrounded by forests and hills. The kind of place where everyone knows everyone, and the nearest Walmart is 40 minutes away. Now, I'm not someone who gets lost easily. I've always been pretty good with directions, even before smartphones were a thing. I can read paper maps, I pay attention to landmarks, and I've done plenty of road trips by myself. But this particular town was so remote, and the roads so complicated once you got off the main highway, that Emily herself had warned me the GPS might get confused in some spots. She said just to call her if I got turned around. So I punched the address into my phone's GPS like I always do, grabbed my large coffee from the kitchen counter, made sure I had a good playlist ready, and hit the road around 1 in the afternoon. The first 3 hours were completely normal and actually pretty enjoyable. Highway driving with light traffic, a couple of rest stops where I stretched my legs and grabbed snacks. The usual road trip stuff. I was making good time, feeling relaxed, enjoying the scenery as the landscape gradually changed from suburban sprawl to more rural farmland, and then to dense forest. The fall colors were absolutely gorgeous, and I remember thinking this was exactly the kind of peaceful drive I needed after those stressful work weeks. But then things started to get weird, and I mean really weird. My GPS told me to take an exit that I almost missed entirely because it was so poorly marked and easy to overlook. There wasn't even a proper exit sign, just a small green marker that was so faded I could barely read the number. The moment I took that exit, it felt like I had driven through some invisible barrier into a completely different world. The smooth, well-maintained highway suddenly became this narrow 2-lane road with cracked pavement, potholes everywhere, and faded yellow lines that were barely visible. The trees on either side grew thicker and closer together, creating this tunnel effect that made everything feel significantly darker, even though it was still mid-afternoon and the sun should have been bright. I checked my phone and the GPS showed I was on the right path. The blue line was solid and continuous, leading me forward with confidence. It said I had about 45 minutes left to my destination. So I trusted it. I mean, why wouldn't I? GPS technology has gotten so incredibly good over the past decade that we don't even question it anymore. We just blindly follow that little blue dot, wherever it takes us, trusting that satellites and algorithms know better than our own instincts. About 15 minutes into this back road, I started noticing things that made me uncomfortable. There were no signs anywhere. Like, at all. No street signs, no mile markers, no speed limit signs. Nothing indicating where I was or what direction I was heading. Just endless forest on both sides. And this deteriorating road that seemed to go on forever, getting worse with every mile. I tried to tell myself it was just a rural area, that not every road is well maintained or properly marked. But something felt fundamentally off. The feeling in my gut was getting stronger. That primal instinct that tells you when something isn't right. I also realized I hadn't seen another car since taking that exit. Not a single vehicle in either direction. No houses, no driveways, no mailboxes, nothing. Just forest and more forest. The trees were old growth too, massive trunks and thick canopy. The kind of forest that looks like it's been there for hundreds of years. It was beautiful in a way, but also unsettling. There was something about the quality of light filtering through those trees that felt wrong. Like I was looking at the world through a filter that shouldn't exist. Then my phone's GPS did something I'd never seen before in years of using navigation apps. The screen flickered. Just for a second, maybe 2, but it definitely flickered like an old television losing signal. The map seemed to glitch out. The blue line showing my route disappeared completely and then reappeared in a slightly different position. I thought maybe it was just losing satellite signal because of the heavy tree cover, so I slowed down a bit and kept watching the screen while trying to keep my eyes on the road. The estimated time of arrival kept changing too, and not in a normal way. First it said 30 minutes remaining, then suddenly it jumped to 50 minutes, then back to 20, 10-2, on a whore. It was like the app could even make up its mind about where I was, or how far I had to go. That's when I should have turned around. Plus, I kept thinking Emily was expecting me and had probably prepared dinner or something, and I didn't want to be even later by backtracking and trying to find another way. So I kept going, and the road kept getting worse. It became even narrower, barely wide enough for two cars to pass each other, though I still hadn't seen a single other vehicle. The pavement gave way to gravel, then the gravel became more sparse, until it was basically just a dirt road with occasional patches of gravel. My car was bouncing over potholes and rocks and exposed tree roots. I had to slow down to about 15 miles per hour just to avoid damaging my suspension or getting a flat tire. The trees were so close now that branches were actually scraping against both sides of my car as I drove, and I was genuinely worried about the scratches I was getting on my paint job. And then the light changed. It got darker, significantly darker, even though according to my watch, it was only around 4:30 in the afternoon. The sun should still have been up for at least another 2 hours, but the canopy above had become so thick and the trees so tall that barely any sunlight was getting through. It felt more like dusk, or even early evening. I turned on my headlights just so I could see the road better, and that's when I noticed how quiet everything was. I rolled down my window for a moment and there was absolutely no sound. No birds chirping, no insects buzzing, no wind rustling the leaves. Just complete and total silence. It was unnatural and deeply disturbing. My GPS suddenly spoke up, that artificial voice telling me to turn right in 500 feet. I slowed down even more, looking for any kind of turnoff, any path, or driveway, or trail, or anything, but there was nothing. Just solid forest on both sides, massive trees, thick undergrowth, impenetrable vegetation. I stopped the car completely and looked at my phone. The GPS was insistent, still showing that I needed to turn right, displaying a clear road on the map that should be right in front of me. But in reality, there was absolutely nothing. Just trees and ferns and darkness. I sat there for a long moment, trying to figure out what to do. I tried to zoom out on the map to see if maybe I had made a wrong turn somewhere way back, but the map wouldn't respond properly. It kept freezing and jumping around, showing me different locations that didn't match up with each other. I checked my signal and I had 2 bars, which should have been enough for the app to work correctly. I even tried switching to a different map app, thinking maybe there was something wrong with the one I was using. But the other app couldn't find my location at all. It just showed a blank screen with a loading icon that spun endlessly. I'm not ashamed to admit I was starting to panic a little bit at this point. I was alone on a road that might not even be a real road, in the middle of nowhere, with no cell signal good enough to make a call, and a GPS that was clearly malfunctioning. I thought about just turning around and retracing my route back to the highway, but I wasn't even sure I could. The road was so narrow and surrounded by such dense forest that there was nowhere to turn around. I'd have to back up 4 miles, and the thought of doing that in increasing darkness was terrifying. This is where the story gets really strange, and I know some of you are going to think I am making this up, or that I was hallucinating or something, but I swear on everything I hold dear that this is exactly what happened. As I was sitting there in my car, staring at my useless phone and trying to decide what to do, I noticed something moving in my peripheral vision. I looked up and through the windshield, past the trees directly in front of me. I could see what looked like structures in the distance, maybe 100 yards ahead through the forest. There were definitely buildings of some kind. Weathered dark wood, partially collapsed roofs, broken windows, clearly abandoned. Multiple buildings actually, arranged in what looked like it might have once been a street or a town square. My GPS suddenly came back to life with a chime, like it had been waiting for me to notice those buildings. It rerouted, and now it showed a path going straight ahead, directly toward where I saw those structures. The blue line was solid and clear again, more confident than it had been in the last 30 minutes. It said I was only 10 minutes from my destination. I don't know why. And looking back, I questioned my judgment so much, but I decided to trust it one more time. Maybe it was denial. Maybe it was hope that this nightmare drive was almost over. Or maybe something about seeing those buildings made me think there might be people there who could help me figure out where I was. So if you're still with me after this long story, thank you so much for listening. I know it sounds crazy, and trust me, I question my own sanity sometimes when I think about it. I'd love to hear in the comments if anything like this has ever happened to you. Have you ever followed your GPS somewhere strange? Have you ever found a place that didn't seem quite real, that you couldn't find again later? Have you ever felt like you've slipped between the cracks of normal reality? Let me know down below, because honestly, I'd feel a lot better knowing I'm not the only one who has experienced something like this. And if you enjoyed this video or found it interesting, please give it a thumbs up and subscribe to the channel, because I plan on sharing more strange experiences and unexplained stories. I've had a few other weird things happen over the years that I've never really talked about publicly, and hearing from people who've had similar experiences has made me want to share them. Maybe together we can figure out what's really going on with these glitches in reality. Until next time, stay safe out there, pay attention to and maybe don't always blindly trust that little blue dot on your screen. Thanks so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.